Karina from Decorative Stitch, and today I'm going to use my Baby Lock Evolution Serger to make a little top for my daughter. It's just a cute little top, and it's got inset lace at the shoulder seams. We can do the whole thing on our serger, so let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is you can either trace a well-fitting t-shirt or you can use any kind of a dolman sleeved pattern that you have. It can't have a set-in sleeve, it'll have to have that dolman type sleeve with just the seam across the shoulder. So if you'll see, I'll close up, the pen line is where I traced the shirt and the Sharpie line is where I'm going to cut. So the neckline's going to stay the same. I took a 1/2 inch, now we're going to be approximate because this is a knit so it's very forgiving. I took a 1/2 inch off the shoulder seam here because the lace will take up 1 inch there. I added a 1/2 inch to the seam allowance on the arm because we're going to turn that under. I have about a 1/4 inch here I've added, and then I added 1 inch on the bottom hemline. So 1 inch, a 1/4, a 1/2, subtracted a 1/2 here for the lace, and then kept the neckline the same. So now I've cut out my front and my back pieces. They're a little bit different. Of course, the neckline in the front piece is going to be a little bit shorter, it'll be a little bit higher in the back, and then this one kind of has a shirt tail hemline in the back, so kind of a high-low. So next I'm going to place these on the fold, and I'm going to cut out my front and back pieces. So here's my front shirt pattern piece, and I'm going to sew the lace right sides together, right on this front shoulder, and then after that we'll do the same to the other side. Right sides together across the shoulder there. So let's go to the serger. Now for the fun part, we get to sew on, I'm using my Baby Lock 8 thread Evolution. I've got it set up for a 2-thread flat lock stitch, and I'm using the lace applicator foot, which you can see here is adjustable. So I'm in a narrow position, so there's that overlock needle 2 drop position, and I've got the guide set just a smidgen to the right of that, so that the needle's going to drop inside the lace and it's going to grab a little piece of it. But this is adjustable depending on which stitch you're using, you know, where you want the lace to come through. Now I find it's a little bit easier to put the lace in first. So I'm going to set the lace in the top over this piece here. And I'm going to drop my needle down just to anchor the lace in. And then I'll grab my top shoulder seam, and that's going to go right side facing up, so right sides will be together. Oops. And I'm just going to cut off just a smidge. So let's lower the presser foot and get stitching. So now we'll just open it up and kind of give it a little tug. There. And you can kind of see, if we zoom in a little bit, the flat lock stitches. So I'm going to go give this a press, and then I will do the other shoulder. So I've attached a piece of lace to each of the 2 top shoulder seams on the front pattern piece, and now I'm going to do the same on the other side of the lace with the back piece. So I'm basically going to close up the shirt at the shoulder seams with that lace in between. And I'm going to use the same method of right side up on the fabric, right side down on the lace. I'm all set up to sew here. As you can see, I've kind of matched up my front and my back pieces there. And I want them both to feed through at the same time so that they match up. So I'm So we've got the lace inserted in between the front and back pieces here. So I'm just gonna snip and kind of even up this neckline and this little edge here. I'm gonna snip them off, and then we can make our neck binding. So I folded my top in half here with the right sides together, and I'm gonna just put some wonder clips on the sides. We don't like to use pins with our serger because they can break your knife. So you never want to use pins when you're serging, but wonder clips are a nice option to keep things together. I'm going to use a 4-thread overlock to close this up, and sometimes when I'm sewing wovens, I like to use the sewing machine first and then overlock so that I can keep my seam allowance really neat. But since knits are so forgiving, I will usually just skip the sewing machine step and overlock as part of construction. It's a nice sturdy stitch, and it's perfect for what we're doing today. I like to keep my quick reference threading guide right next to my serger so that I can use it to change my stitches out very quickly and easily and know that I'm doing everything right. So I've got my 4-thread overlock set up here, and I only had 2 spools of orange to match my top, so I'm gonna use those in the needles, and then I just use some kind of neutral off-white for the loopers. So we will get started, and your sergers like to cut off a little bit, so I'm just gonna cut off just a smidgen. So I'll continue to sew up this side and the other side. I like to start at the bottom hem just so that I can take that curve underneath the arm when I'm rolling along and not have to start with it. So to make that curve, I just can kind of pull it straight. You don't want to stretch your knit while you're serging. And it's always good to give it a little press when you're done. So I'll do the other side, and then we'll be ready to switch to a covered hem. I went ahead and pressed under about approximately an inch here on my bottom hem and about 1/2 inch on my sleeve hems. So when you're using your cover stitch, you have to sew from the right side, and sometimes you can kind of feel the hump of where the hem is folded over, but just so I can have a nice straight cover stitch, sometimes I like to mark it with a chalk. It's just a little bit easier to do it before you have it on the machine than to try to feel through. So this is just a nice little tip if you want a really straight cover hem line. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark my hem here and my sleeve hems, and then we'll get set up for a cover stitch. Now I'm set up for my project, and I don't know if you can see my chalk line here, but basically since I have a wide cover stitch, I'm using this needle and this needle. So I want to run my chalk line right through this center one, and then I know that my All right, I'm coming up to the end. So I'm gonna stop here and snip these threads. And now it's nice with the clear foot because I can line up my new stitching, and I'm gonna just over stitch over my old lines a couple, maybe 5 or 6 stitches here. Okay, once I've done that, I'm gonna lift up my needles. I'm gonna lift up my presser foot, and then I'm just gonna reach under here and grab these threads, these needle threads, and pull them toward me and give them a little snip. Then I can go ahead and kind of pull my top out the back, and you'll watch these threads are going to get pulled to the back of the garment. There we go. So there's my cover stitch hem. I will go ahead and tie these off. And we're almost finished. Oops. The next thing I'm going to do, the last thing, is we're going to make the neck binding for our top. So what I need to do is measure the opening here and then figure out about 85% of it. So I'll just take a soft measuring tape and kind of measure around. So I measured my neckline and it's 19.25 inches. Multiply it by 0.85 and you come up with 16.36. So I'm going to cut a neck binding that's 2 inches wide by about 16 1/4, 16 1/2 inches long. Here's my 16 1/2 by 2 inch piece here, and I folded the wrong sides together here and just put a really crisp press in that. And the next thing I'm going to do is just overlock it into a loop. So I'm going to open up my neck band here, and I'm going to put the right sides together, and I'm just going to serge together this short edge. Then since I've got my line already pressed, I'm going to fold it back so that now the right sides are out. And I'm going to divide this neckband into quarters. So I'll just mark here and here, and then I'll match these together and mark here and here. And I will do the same on the neckline of my shirt. So I found the center back, the center front, and then even fourths, and I did the same on the neckband. So I'm gonna just clip these together with the raw edges matching like this, and I'm gonna pin them all together. And the neckband is shorter than the shirt, so there's gonna be some scrunching of the shirt. Go. So I've got my neckline all attached. I just kind of have to stretch it a little bit to fit the top, and I'm going to do a 4-thread overlock all the way around the neckline. So here it is, the finished product. I can give this neckline a good press, but it looks, I think, really professional. My cover stitch sleeves look great. My little inset lace. I'm really happy with how it turned out.